Why are you so pathetic? Daddy issues? What is your opinion on CBD, marijuana, cigars, and vape? Things like that. Should they be legal? When did you decide to start speaking out against abortion? All those questions and more on this episode of Deconstructing the Culture. We're going to do a segment titled after the little sticker on Instagram called Ask Me Anything. I am your host, Elisa Steele. Here's the problem with naming anything after a social media button is social media is constantly changing. So one day someone's going to listen to this podcast and they're going to hear Ask Me Anything and they're going to be like, what? That was a thing on Instagram? Wait, Instagram was a thing? So yeah, for someone who maybe even isn't on Instagram at all, there's a little bubble that you could put over your Instagram stories and it automatically autofills with Ask Me Anything. And then people could submit questions. There you go. Now you're relevant. You know what's going on. Well, I do love to do the Ask Me Anything segments on Instagram, but I don't like to record my answers on Instagram. It's just too limited. And you guys are my podcast fam. So you guys are the only ones who really deserve to know the answers to all your many questions. No, not really. If you're on Instagram, just come on over here to the podcast side. We are the dark side with cookies and all the answers that you could ever want. So let's go ahead and dive right in. It's been about 6 months since I've done one of these. I think the last one I did was titled Answers. So if you're interested in hearing other humorous questions that people like to ask or just good questions that you want to know the answers to, go ahead and check out that one from 6 months ago. All right. Newlywed groom man asks, have you always been a conservative babe? Yes. Basically, that's the short answer. Yep. And I go into longer answers in other podcasts, but you'll have to go check that out. But the short answer to that is yes, I have always been conservative. My family is very conservative. Alex asks, what are your views on women who want to stay home and be homemakers? Alex, that is a great question. And I love that question because that is a question that many young millennial moms and Gen X moms are struggling with because much of our secular world tells moms that they are going to be failures if they are just moms. That's in air quotation marks. I don't think there's any such thing as being just a mom. When you are a mom or a homemaker, you are everything. You hold a home and a family together. You are both a full-time maid, a full-time cook, a full-time educator. There's so much. I never believe in using anything regarding to motherhood or homemaking, I think is really positive, and I don't ever like to put a negative light on that. So I'm a huge supporter of women who want to be homemakers and stay-at-home moms, and honestly, the other way around. Doug on Tap over, he's Abby Johnson's husband. He is a full-time stay-at-home dad of 8 children, and he's awesome. So that goes to dads too. If you're a stay-at-home dad, which is obviously a lot less common, but I mean, seriously, you're rocking that. Keep up the good work. I think it's awesome to have stay-at-home parents. All right, Pumpkin Weirdo. I'm not making fun of this person. That's legit their username, Pumpkin Weirdo. Asked me, why am I so pathetic and do I have daddy issues? This one actually made me laugh because I know that this person was trying to just like throw slurs at me, first of all, by calling me pathetic, but what made me laugh is I legitimately did have daddy issues, hardcore. I mean, how can you not? If you know my history of coming from a polygamous family, that means, for people who don't know what polygamy is, that means one man and multiple women. So my father had like 7 or 8 wives, and he biologically had 33 children. I have more siblings than that because my mom remarried and had more children, but he biologically had 33 children. One man cannot possibly be there for 33 children. Then you have to remember my mom escaped from polygamy when I was 3 years old. Yeah, I had total daddy issues. I'm just not even kidding. I have a younger sister and she's substantially younger than I am. And I tell her all the time, like, all the mistakes I made and how she should not repeat them. And she won't, obviously, because she's smart and I wasn't. I was kind of dumb as a young teenager and I did have daddy issues, and I desperately needed this male attention void filled because I didn't have a dad under the age of 8 years old. And that makes a big difference because even when my mom was married to my polygamist father, it's not like he could really be there. He had 33 children. Like, you can't be there for that many women and that many children. You really can't even support them. So really from day one, I would honest to goodness say I was born to a single mother, because having a polygamous father really is not a two-parent household. He's not living with us. It's a hit and miss seeing him. It really just does not count. So yeah, I totally had daddy issues, and you can try and throw that like a slur, but I think it's kind of funny, first of all. But also, there's a lot of girls out there who, if you look at the single parent household statistics, are rising. There's a lot of girls who have to work through exactly what I had to work through. So if you're working through that, reach out to me. I have some really great book recommendations and therapist recommendations, and you can be A-okay. So Johnny asks, any suggestions on how to talk about issues like abortion when people seem happy to ignore it? Well, here's the thing. There's a difference between ignoring an issue and just not talking about it, and someone who blatantly does not, will tell you, I don't want to talk about this issue with you. So one, there's hope. You can bring about the issue. You can kind of just be like, maybe you can bring up a news story, or maybe you could be like, hey, 40 Days for Life is happening right now. Hint also to all of y'all, 40 Days for Life is happening right now. So look into 40 Days for Life near you. Just ask them like, hey, would you maybe want to go pray in front of an abortion clinic with me? And if they say no, then that opens the conversation. You'd be like, oh, well, why not? And you can just kind of open the conversation. There's a lot of resources for how to talk about this issue. I would definitely put you in the direction of Live Action. They have some really phenomenal videos that are great for people who don't know anything about abortion. But if they're the latter case, where I told you they just don't want to talk about abortion, you don't have any hope if they refuse to acknowledge it, or if they ignore it, like you say. It's kind of like, let's just say for the sake of the argument, you don't believe in climate change. And then someone who's a hardcore climate change believer comes and says, let's talk about climate change. And you're just like, listen, dude, I have already made up my mind about this. I doubt that there's anything to tell me. Maybe you could have a short conversation, but if they get hostile, then you're really going to end that quickly. So I guess my number one tip for anyone you're talking to about abortion, do not get hostile. Do not make accusations. Try not to use the word like baby murderer. Just keep it fact-based. If you want to have a religious conversation, that's a different thing. But for most people, you can keep it fact-based, and they can really kind of see your point pretty soon. And the easiest way to get them to kind of rethink their position is to find out when they do believe life begins. And so if that is not at conception, which a lot of people who believe in abortion, it's not life at conception. But if it's not conception, trying to figure out. So some people will be like, well, when they can live out, they can live on their own outside the womb. And you ask them, well, a 2-year-old can't live by themselves. And what about someone who's, kept alive by an iron lung? They can't survive by themselves. Like, just ask them, challenge their idea of when life starts, whether it's cognitive dissonance, whether or not they are fully there mentally. You could be like, well, what about someone who is in a vegetable state? Do I have the power to now, is it within my rights, doesn't matter who that person is, to go and stab them if they're in vegetable state? They would agree with you, no. So really challenge when they believe life begins, and that's the easiest way to get them thinking about their position. And that's if they're open to talking about it in the first place. All right, Exandria. I hope I said that right. Probably didn't. Ever played Dungeons and Dragons? No, I have not, but I'm not opposed to it. I know I have some geeky friends. Sorry if I called you a geek. Yeah, I would try it out. I don't think I could ever get seriously into it, simply because I don't have that much time or interest. But it sounds funny. I don't know. I could just do it so I could say that I have played. So if you're around me and you want to play Dungeons and Dragons and you have like the game or whatever, totally invite me. I'll be there. Kelly asks, what kind of church do you belong to? I belong to a Christian non-denominational church, simply because I have yet to have ever found a denomination that I fully agree with or feel like is 100% biblically accurate. So yeah, I believe in being a Christian and following Christ, and keep it non-denominational for now. Maybe that later in my life that will change, but for now, that's where I'm at. Clear asks, Advice to teens just starting out and getting involved in the pro-life movement. Love you, Elisa. Aw, thanks, Claire. I love you too. It reminds me every time people say that to me, no offense, I'm sorry, Claire, if you're listening right now, but anytime people tell me that they love me and I've never met them before, it always reminds me of the Disney movie Megamind and the superhero being like, and I love you, random citizen. Not that I think you're random. I think you're lovely, but it's hard to love you when we haven't met yet. But if we met, I'm sure I would love you, Claire. All right, so advice to teens starting in the pro-life movement. Read everything. Read everything you can get your hands on. Know the science in and out. Read the opposing side. Do not just engross yourself in the pro-life arguments. Read all the literature and watch the speeches that you can about the pro-abortion side. You need to understand the other side. That is the only thing that's going to set you apart and to your peers and help you be more knowledgeable is to study what the other side is saying. You can't just get away with memorizing buzz lines from or burn lines from Twitter. You need to know your facts inside and out. You need to be able to come about your peers, your teenage peers or otherwise, with facts and love and logic. Stress on the love and logic, because as logical as you can be as logical as you want, and you can say, yeah, you're a murderer if you're taking human lives, but that's not going to sway anybody to call them a baby murderer. And I used to not feel this way, but it really wasn't until I read Abby Johnson's story about working in a Planned Parenthood clinic for so many years and being on the other side and then coming to the pro-life side that I realized you're not going to reach the other side, whether they're pregnant mothers or abortionists or clinic workers with hatred and baby killing slogans. Like, that is the truth. That is logical, but you also have to come about the subject with love and compassion. That's really important to me. Let's see. Olivia asks, what is your opinion on CBD, marijuana, cigars, vape, things like that? So that is probably a whole episode by itself, but the long and the short of it is when I was at the Utah State Capitol for many years, I lobbied against all of those bills, like, for medical marijuana, much less recreational marijuana. I was very against all of that. Then I read this book, and it was like a 13-hour book or something. I think it was called Chasing the Scream. I can't remember the author, but it made me realize some key things about what we were getting wrong in this movement. And one of those things is, why is it that the drug lords in Mexico and the drug lords anywhere, the people who are selling drugs, why is it that they're fighting to keep drugs illegal? Think about that. Why are the vendors of illegal substances, why are they fighting to keep these substances illegal? Answer is because it benefits them. They like the black market. It benefits them to keep it in secret like this. Plus, people who are struggling and want to get out and need to get out can't get the help that they need as easily. So I've definitely softened on this. I probably fall more libertarian on this issue than I have in the past. As a general idea, like for things that aren't illegal, like vape or cigars, I think they're gross. I really do. Like, I have some good friends who are like, they love their whiskey and cigars. I just think it's gross. Like, me and my husband, we don't smoke anything at all, cigars, or we don't vape. I mean, I have some close loved ones who vape. I think it's stupid, honestly. I think that any kind of substance that alters or addles your mind or mood too much and is strongly addictive, you do take risks with. You have to calculate, are those risks worth taking it? So for me, one of those substances I do think falls under that umbrella is coffee. I think coffee does alter with you, and it overstresses your adrenals, and it is acidic, but I choose that one because I know that I can handle coffee. It's not going to make me kill anyone by drunk driving, or it's not going to mess with my lungs like vaping or cigars. So I take calculated risks with my own health. We all do with substances we take, including sugar. Sugar is a highly addictive substance that changes your body chemistry. Every one of us deals with different consumption issues. You just have to decide what you can deal with. If you think vape is fine for you, I'm not going to say, yeah, be like, that's great, but you can make that choice if you want to smoke a cigar. So that's kind of my opinion on that. But that's like a whole long subject. I can make a whole podcast episode on that. Diane asks, when did you decide to speak out against abortions? I mean, really, I think I did an episode on this, or at least I've told this story before, but basically when I was like 13 or 14, I watched this news clip of this girl who was probably also 13 or 14, and she did a school paper on abortion, and I was really inspired by that, and I was like, wow, that's cool. I didn't know you could talk about this when you were that young. And then I watched Lila Rose's undercover videos into Planned Parenthood, and that like lit a fire under me, and I was like, holy cow, this is what I want to do. And I told my mom that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't allowed to do that though. She said it was too risky, but I found other ways to speak out. So when did I decide to speak out abortion? Probably around like 13, probably. And I started to study the issue heavily. Max, what kind of music do you listen to? Max, I don't really have time to listen to music. I know it's so sad because there is such a benefit to good music, but I just don't really have time. Anytime I have quiet time in the car, I'm usually listening to a book, or I'm listening to a podcast, or I'm catching up on the news for this podcast or for Conservative Babes Instagram or Facebook. So I don't really find myself listening to music very often. When it is, it's usually because my husband inflicted it upon me. He listens to oldie music. So yeah, I guess the answer is whatever my husband has on. Thanks for asking, Max. Annie asks, hey, Elisa, did your house survive the hurricane? Yes, thank you for asking. Annie, it survived Hurricane Dorian because it didn't make landfall on Florida, but it did not survive my washing machine. My washing machine somehow flooded my entire house. So I'm kind of homeless right now. My house doesn't have toilets or vanities or a kitchen yeah. So, survive the hurricane, not survive the washing machine. I guess life all evens out in the end. Danielle asks, are you in your new house? How's moving going? I think I just answered that. Yes, I am in my new house, kind of, but it's homeless right now because now I have to fix it again. Yeah, I'm moving again. So just moving stuff around to fix it. Rackman asks, opinion on homosexuality? Great question. I've also addressed this in other podcasts, but the long and the short of it is I'm kind of libertarian when it comes to homosexual marriage. I don't think the government should be involved in marriage at all. I believe that marriage traditionally and even today is something that was designed by God for stable families and stable human beings and procreation, for raising good families. What homosexual people decide to do in their bedroom is quite frankly none of my business, nor do I care. I only care when it's being pushed on children and pushed on society and in schools, and no, not okay with that. But homosexuality on its own, I think it's a sin. I don't believe in it. My faith tells me that that's a sin, but so are straight couples living together before marriage or sleeping together before marriage. I'm also against that too. So to me, sexual sin is sexual sin. I'm against all of it. But, my opinion on homosexuality, what are you asking? Government-wise or personally? Personally, it's a sin. Government-wise, government should be out of it as much as possible. Lisa asked, do you think vaccines are wrong? Lisa, thank you for asking. I actually did an entire episode on this, and it's called Big Government versus hold on. What was that called? I feel so bad. I cannot even remember the name of my own podcast. Is that terrible? I come up with a name. I don't memorize it. It's called Big Government versus Freedom. That's what it is. And then it says vaccinations. So you'll know. Just look for vaccinations. And that was only a few podcast episodes ago, so you can find that easily. Boston asked Halloween costume this year. Boston, I'm super lame. I don't really like Halloween, at all. I love fall and I love decorating for fall, but I'm not a Halloween person. Never really have. I hate the gory costumes and the nasty decorations. And basically everyone I know does that. So I'm not trying to be offensive to you. If you love Halloween, you love decorating for it. I just think it's disgusting and kind of satanic. So I probably won't dress up for Halloween at all. And if I do, it will be something super last minute and cliche. I'm pretty sure 3 years in a row when I had to dress up for some party or another, or friends get together, I put on red lipstick, a red bandana, and a denim shirt. And I was like, yeah, totally. This is my costume every year. Yeah, that, or else I'm going to pull a Jim from The Office and wear a white shirt and put 3 round things and call myself a hole punch or a hole punched paper. Yeah. Whatever it is, it'll be lame. Trust me, it won't be noteworthy, Boston. Check me on Halloween and I'll probably post something in my story. Julia asked, hey, random question for you. I was wondering what your thoughts/views are on using contraception in the context of marriage. I haven't heard many pro-life women's opinions on this topic, and I value yours and would like to know what you think. Thank you for asking, Julia. I did an entire podcast episode on this just for you and all the other many women, single and married, who want the answer to this. It is called birth control. Look it up. Just a few episodes ago, a couple months ago, or last month or something. And it will answer all of your questions. I answer that one in detail because I was getting that question asked from a lot of people. So thank you, Julia, for reaching out. Go and check out that episode and it will give you the answers you're looking for. With that, we're going to go ahead and end with Good in the World. I love this story. It's short and it's sweet and it's also precious. It's from a blog titled The Dad. And it's single dad adopts girl with Down syndrome who was rejected by 20 families, which is super sad, but it's the world of adoption. Sometimes it's hard, to be honest. A lot of the world, they abort babies if they find out that they have Down syndrome. So I think it's beautiful that this girl was born in the first place, and then the ensuing story after is beautiful. So Alba was just a few days old when she was put up for adoption by her parents because she has Down syndrome. Sadly, 20 other families passed on adopting her by the time she was 13 days old. But her story got a happy ending when a single dad stepped in to adopt the adorable 4-week-old infant. This story went viral with the release of a book that the father wrote about his life with Alba, a story he says destroys many stereotypes about fatherhood, religion, and family. Now, I'm not sure what he's referencing there, and I'm not going to speak into it because I haven't read his book, but the outside of the story is what I'm saying is the beautiful part. Adoption laws in Italy, by the way, this is in Italy, are fairly strict and rarely are single parents approved, but Alba's condition warranted an amendment to the normal regulations. And Lucia said that he experienced no trepidation about the decision, driving to the hospital to fill out the paperwork the moment he was approved. This is so beautiful. Lucia had a story of volunteering and working with children with disabilities, so he felt prepared to raise a child with Down syndrome, and he couldn't wait to become a dad. He said, quote, when I held her in my arms, I was filled with joy, he told the BBC. I felt she was my daughter immediately, and I knew I was ready to be her father. Lucia said Alba, now about a year and a half, loves to play, meet new people, and, quote, I will spend the rest of my life with the girl I love, and we will do many wonderful things together. That is so sweet and so precious, and God bless this man for taking on a different life, because having a child with disabilities, as many of you know, because you have a child with disability or you have, there's a family member with disabilities, it changes your life for the rest of your life, but not in a bad way. And this man was able to see that and embrace that and adopted this little girl, and now this little girl has a family and it's her dad. And having been raised by a single mom, I know that being raised by a single parent is not ideal. Biblically and also just scientifically, you look at the studies, it is better for children to have two parents, but in the cases where a child just needs a parent and, maybe two parents comes later on, this is a beautiful story of a man who was willing to step up and care for this baby, even if she was unwanted by 20 other families, which is tragic. So this is the beautiful in the world. I think this is wonderful in a world that aborts, they abort Down syndrome babies. This man was loving enough and could see that we're all created in God's image and adopted this beautiful little girl. With that is gonna be a wrap for today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll do another one of these Ask Me Anything episodes maybe in like another 6 months. That seems to be the trend so far. In the meantime, have a wonderful week. God bless you. God bless America. Please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. That is how this podcast makes it in the Apple rankings. That's how this podcast makes it in the YouTube world. It's because of your help and your support. And you know what? As much as I love putting these together, it is a lot of work. So as a personal thank you to me, let me be candid with you. I need ya to go share this video, like, and subscribe. Thanks.